prepare some remarks, but a lot of what I have in my prepared remarks has already been said. And so what I'd like to do is to respond to a couple of comments and then to share some perhaps not fully formed thinking that I've been doing about the entire issue. First of all, in terms of the question of what are the ultimate benefits of tough ethics laws, I think when we are looking at the education system, we're talking about the impact of low expectations. I think that happens in this situation as well. If your bar is fairly low, if your lines aren't clear, if things are kind of lax, it creates a climate that's not positive and that isn't helpful in terms of guidance for elected officials and in terms of the public's expectations. And what we have right now is a crisis of low expectations, both on the part of the public and perhaps among some legislators in terms of the standards they should be held to. And so I think this is kind of like the quality of life issue with broken windows. I think you need to set a high standard, and that helps people judge their own conduct, and it also reinforces what is a positive thing, I think, on the part of the public, which is expecting that their elected representatives will model good behavior and serve the public interest. But one of the things that I want to strongly reinforce is what Jesse Wisniewski was saying, and I know Dick doesn't necessarily agree with this.
You can speak for me?
No, I'm just trying to preempt you as a good former trial lawyer, right? And that is the fact that, as it's come up several times, it's very difficult to unpack the things that we talk about as if they were really separate issues: ethics, lobbying, campaign finance. And I've been trying to figure out why is that? What are we really trying to get to in all of these issues and in these different things that we're trying to regulate? And I think I'm evolving towards the, as I said, not fully finalized thinking that what we're talking about is, to me, the concept of political money, but defined in a very, very broad sense. And that is money that is spent to ultimately affect public policy. So it might be money which is spent for campaign contributions. It might be money which is spent by a business partner to gain access to a legislator. It might be money which is spent by a coalition with a bland name to run advertising for or against a particular tax structure. These are all things which I think the public instinctively sees as related in some way. And so I've really been trying to think, what's the relation? The relation is the ultimate goal is to try and push public policy in a particular direction that may not be representative, that may not be a approach which will serve the interests of the maximum number of people, but to use money to try and push the result in a particular way. And so I in my thinking, have been trying to look at the connections and have been struck with the fact that there are certain ways in which the money is used that is now starting to bleed in terms of techniques that are used. So what we used to think of as techniques and technology that was focused on election campaigns is now starting to pop up, and we are acutely aware of this here in New York, as grassroots lobbying. So what kind of disclosures do we need of money that is spent to influence the public opinion, whether it's public opinion to elect somebody or public opinion to oppose or support a particular budget? Perhaps we need disclosures that are identical in terms of who is spending that money to communicate and try and influence public policy. If we're talking about money which is spent to try and more directly influence a elected official or a government official of some way, then we need to be thinking about the different ways in which that money is spent and what are the disclosures. And so, to me, I think it's an interesting and constantly evolving area. And one of the things which we have not been good at doing here in New York has been keeping up with what's actually going on. As has been mentioned, several times, ethics, the substance of our ethics laws, as opposed to the form in which the enforcement takes place, has not really been substantially revised in a very long time. The reason why I'm excited about this forum is that I think we need to be engaging in an ongoing discussion, because the public is aware of these issues. When they are evaluating elected officials, these are questions which come up all the time. I'm sure all of you have had the experience in re-election campaigns of having to defend choices that you've made without a lot of guidance from an independent ethics oversight body, or certainly, if not to constituents, to reporters who are always looking for ways to embarrass elected officials. And we need to have an ongoing dialogue and not look at ethics as ethics, campaign finance reform, lobby reform as this monumental task that we have to do. I agree that we need sweeping reform right now, but even the largest overhaul should be thought of as part of a continuing process where we study and we reevaluate and we talk among ourselves with elected officials, that the public engages, and we say, is this working? How can we make it better? Here's a small piece that we need to fix. Here's perhaps a large piece that we need to fix. This process has got to be ongoing. So I commend you for really calling this discussion. I hope that it is the first of an ongoing series of discussions that we and others have an opportunity to engage in with our elected officials, because this shouldn't be a gotcha situation. There are similar desires on both sides. We all figure out a way to make it happen that works for elected officials, that isn't completely and totally intrusive, which discourages people from wanting to serve, yet at the same time gives the public the sense that the constant attempt to influence public policy for a particular viewpoint is in some way being handled legitimately and effectively here in Albany.